Hey guys, it's Zach with Rivets and Hide. So I ran across this bracelet online called a Mystery Bracelet, and I kind of want to make one for myself. So that's what we're going to do today. So here I just have a little veg tan. It's a 4 to 5 ounce veg tan. I'm just removing the excess off of the side. I don't want that in the way. And then we're going to get started on this. So this mystery bracelet is it's a single bracelet that has a braid that runs through the center of it, and it's whole on both sides. You'll see as we go through the process. So what I'm using right here is I'm using a ruler and a scratching awl, and we are going to measure this out to about 9 inches by 3 inches. This actually gave enough for to where I could make like 4 of these bracelets. This is my first time making it, so I didn't trust the process, and I'm glad that I didn't, because I ended up botching all 3 of them except for 1. But yeah. So what we're doing right here is we're just using the ruler and the scratching awl, and we're scratching this out to 9 inches by 3 inches. Just getting a feel for how much leather I'm going to need and what the process is going to be like going forward trying to make these. So here we're switching over to the utility knife, and we're going to just start cutting this out. So this should come as a 9 inch by 3 inch rectangle. We'll get cut through this, and then we'll switch over to the dyeing process, and I'll show y'all what that looks like. Alright, so here we're cutting through the leather. Right here, the blade is dulling just a slight bit, I don't exactly have it at the perfect angle. So you're going to see me struggle with this a couple of times, trying to make sure that all the little fibers get cut through so that I don't have to break off too much stuff. I do get a little frustrated here in this top corner because there's just one little tiny fiber that's just clinging on to it and just will not come loose. But eventually it does come loose. We cleaned up a little bit, and then everything's happy and peachy. So here we move back over. I'm going to put up the veg tan now because I have 2 cats, and the last thing that I need is a $50 roll of veg tan becoming a scratching post. So while I'm putting that away, I'm also going to grab some dye, and we're going to bring that over and get started. So the dye that I use is Pro Dye. It's made by Fibings, I think is the name of it. And this is a walnut color with a little wand. So measuring this out, just making sure that the dimensions are correct, making sure that everything is right before we get into this. And if there's anything that I need to clean off or smooth up, then I'm going to take care of that real quick. So that's what you're going to be seeing here, is me just scratching out a couple of little areas that didn't come out exactly even. So clean that up nice and easy there. Make sure both sides are square. You know, they say measure twice and cut once, and I should probably take my own advice sometimes. Just making sure. Yep, everything looks good. So here I'm just making sure that everything is nice and clean, not buffed out, no scratches, and then we're going to move right into the dyeing part of this. So I actually make a little bit of a mistake here, because the correct procedure for this would have been to put some neat's foot oil on here, or maybe wet the leather down a little bit so that dye could sit in there and equally diffuse out like it needed to. I kind of jumped right in, forgetting partly that I had to do that. And second, I knew that I was going to cut this into 4 different pieces, so I wasn't as worried about the dye being uniform. Now you're going to see me put the cap on a couple of times because I don't want the leather to dry, or the dye to dry out. But I did decide that I wanted to do a little bit of a darker color on this, so I decided to go ahead and apply a second coat now. And another thing that you don't want to do is change the directions of your circles as you're going either. But again, I'm going to be cutting these into 4 pieces, and I'm just going to be wearing it on my wrist, more or less, to see how it fits and see if this is a product that I want to invest time into doing and providing. So front and back, we're going to dye over this. I'm actually going to dye over this twice on the back just to make sure I get it really saturated in. And then afterwards, we're going to jump back to this and let it die in for about an hour. So enjoy the rest of this, and then I'll come back and we can talk about the next part. So here we are after an hour. Of course, like I said, I decided to use the neat's foot oil, and I think I re-dyed over it a couple of times, or one more time afterwards, just to make sure. The neat's foot oil just helps it blend over. There was a couple of spots in there that I wasn't overly thrilled with, so. Now what you're going to see is I'm going to start cutting this up into 4 strips. And that's going to make 4 different bracelets. Now, I knew that I was going to mess up a couple of these because, 1, it's my first time doing it, and 2, I was just a little bit worried about the size from what I had read online. There was some discrepancies kind of between what some people measure on their wrist versus what I had on my wrist, or what the width wanted to be. So I wanted to play around with a couple of different sizes. And I think by the 4th one, I finally got the one that I wanted just right for me. And so we're going to go ahead and cut this out. Again, handy dandy X-Acto knife. Perfect. There we go. So 4 strips. So the next part of this is going to be just cleaning these up. And then I'm going to measure 1 inch from the top, 1 inch from the bottom, and cut 3 lines in the middle. And you'll see why in just a moment. But for now, let's square these up and get these nice and clean. Alright, so like I said, 1 inch from the top, 1 inch from the bottom, and then we're going to cut it into 3. So the reason for that is we're actually going to end up braiding this. So jumping right into it, we go from right to left twice. And then it's going to tangle at the top. And so we have to actually flip that over once. And then we go right and left, flip it under a second time, and it actually straightens the top of these braids. Now, the leather is really firm, so it takes a few times. So you're going to see me braid all the way up to the top of this. I'm going to attempt to try and go underneath. It's going to fail, and so I'm going to have to go back down, tighten these down a bit, and then I'm going to braid it all the way up as tight as I can, unbraid it a bit, and then rebraid it again, just to kind of loosen off those strands, but you'll see what I mean as we go. So that's going to go underneath. Then we're going to braid it one more time and go back under again. And this is where it's going to get just a little bit too tight. And so I'm going to unbraid it. Stress out those strands just a little bit to make them more thread-like and less leather-like. Yep. Undo. Oh, where's the other one? Oh, crap. Oh, there it is. Yep, undo. Perfect. All right, so now that we're back kind of where we started with that first initial braid, flex all this back out, and then we're going to rebraid it one more time, and you're going to see it's going to fit perfectly. Yep. Under, one to the left, one to the right, and under. Done. Look at that. Alright, straighten this up just a little bit. Now it's still not completely set, as you can tell, and we can actually set this really easy. What we'll do is we're just going to run it across this table a few times. Look at that. Now that's a bracelet. Well, almost. We still need the rivets. Speaking of rivets, rivets. So here we have a leather punch. This is just a little cutting mat. Don't worry too much about that. But what we're going to do is we're going to measure out the exact center on the right. And then we're going to also measure out the exact center on the other side after here. So we're just going to mark these 2 spots for where I need to punch for the holes. Yep. right there and there. And then we need to make sure that this hole punch is actually going to align with the sizing for the rivet. Perfect. Alright. So normally we use these punches for like chrome leather, which is a very, very fabric-like leather. I was attempting to try and use this on the veg tan, but it turns out to be just a little bit too firm for it to get through on that second punch. And so I'm going to fight with it a little bit. Going to see if I can get it to go through, but in the end, it's unsuccessful. And so we go back to the old tried and true method. A punch board, a mallet, and a punch pin. 3 to 4 hits, and we are through that puppy. No problem. There's always a solution to every single situation. Alright, so here we're getting out the caps. So these come with a kind of a two-part set. So one side is going to be the snap, the other side is going to be the closure, and then each of them have their own set. You're going to see that I'm getting out the anvil, and these two are punches. So those punches are to help set the snapping. So our first initial thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to set the receiving end of the snap. And so we'll take a little spike punch, pop it twice, and just one more for good measure to make sure that it's all flush in there. And then we want to make sure that when it wraps around, it's going to snap exactly where I want it to. So I'm double checking, making sure everything's lining up, making sure everything's orientated in the right direction. Then we're going to take a flat punch, pop it twice, and it's as simple as that. Look at that. That's pretty. Alright. Let's see. I think that's just about perfect. What do y'all think? Alright, it's a good fit, and I'll see y'all next time.